Chairman Berman. Mr. Speaker, the United States and Japan have a strong and critical alliance. It is based on shared interests and values, and our common support for political and economic freedoms, human rights, and international law. Japan, for example, is second to none in supporting President Barack Obama's vision of a world without nuclear weapons and advocating for nuclear disarmament and non-proliferation. Japan has also recently doubled its civilian aid to Afghanistan, helping in our mission there to a great and important extent. But, Mr. Speaker, this resolution involves 214 cases involving more than 300 American children who have been abducted to Japan and or wrongfully retained in Japan since 1994. These American children are in Japan because they were kidnapped by a parent with Japanese citizenship. Despite a shared concern within the international community, the Japanese government has yet to accede to the 1980 Hague Convention on the civil aspects of international child abduction or create any other mechanism to resolve international child abductions. Japan's existing family law system, which dates back to 1600s, it neither recognizes joint custody nor actively enforces parental access agreements that have been adjudicated by United States courts. Essentially, American parents must beg to see their abducted children and have no legal recourse if the taking parent decides to deny them access. That's wrong. And in no case has the Japanese government facilitated the return to a parent outside their country. So the intent of this resolution is to bring the plight of these parents to the forefront of the public consciousness. It calls on the Japanese government to ratify the 1980 Hague Convention on the Civil Aspects of International Child Abduction so that Japan will commit to a process that will return abducted children to their custodial parent in the United States and elsewhere where appropriate, or otherwise immediately at least allow access to their non-Japanese parent. The Japanese government doesn't consider it a crime and will not prosecute a Japanese citizen that abducts a child and moves the child across national borders, which essentially makes Japan complicit in what many foreign governments consider to be a crime, including the United States government, which considers it kidnapping. Japan does, however, prosecute cases of foreign nationals removing Japanese children from Japan, which violates any basic sense of fairness. So they apply a different law if somebody abducts a child from Japan than they apply if somebody abducts a child from the United States or another foreign country and brings them to Japan, where they have haven from the law. And it is infuriating to learn, frankly, that Japanese officials have issued travel documents and passports to these abductors in defiance of previously established U.S. custody orders. And in some cases, they have given false names to the children being kidnapped to Japan, issuing false passports so that they are directly complicit in these abductions. Now, there are numerous heartbreaking abduction stories, and I'm just going to mention a few because Mr. Smith went into several. One case, though, in particular that I want to underscore involves a case from my district in Virginia, right across the river from the nation's capital. It involves a Japanese mother who, for fear of what might happen to her child, has to request that her name not be used. Her husband, who is not Japanese, fled to Japan because he's a lawyer, and he knew that he would find safe haven from Virginia court orders in violation of U.S. law. So here he kidnapped a child from a Japanese mother, knowing that he could take them to Japan and he would find haven there from any prosecution under U.S. laws and not even have to allow access to the child by the mother. Now, it gets even worse. Despite having no contact with her children, this woman has to continue to pay child support. And the address on the payment statement is the only connection she has with her children. That is wrong. Now, Mr. Smith mentioned the Braden case. Melissa Braden was secretly abducted from her home in 2006 by her mother, brought to Japan in violation of previous Los Angeles Superior Court orders giving both parents access to the child and prohibiting international travel with the child by either parent. And yet he was able to take the mother was able to take the child from the father in violation of court orders and is protected by the Japanese government. There's the case of Erica Tolan, abducted in 2003 from the Nagishi U.S. Navy family housing in Yokohama to Tokyo, Japan, by her now deceased mother. So the mother has deceased, but she is being held by her Japanese maternal grandmother and denied access by her father. So her father is living, wants to be with his child. The mother is deceased, and he can't even see the child because of the protection provided by the Japanese government. There's the case of Isaac and Rebecca Savoy. This was mentioned by Mr. Smith. They were abducted just last year by the mother in violation of a Tennessee state court order. You shouldn't be messing with Tennessee state courts. But in violation of a Tennessee state court order of joint custody and Tennessee statutes, they were taken to Japan. Both children have been denied any communication and access by her father. So the mother is holding them in Japan. The father cannot have access to either child, even though the court has ordered it. And lastly, one other case, and again, this is typical of so many other cases, more than 100, the Eliases. One child 4, the other age 2. They were abducted in December of 2008, just about a year and a half ago, from New Jersey, in violation of another court order prohibiting the removal of the children from the state of New Jersey. And yet they were taken out of the country. The children's father tries desperately to have contact with his children, but he is forbidden to have that contact. This father needs to be mentioned specifically. Here is an Iraqi war veteran. He was shot twice in the service of our country. He was dragged from a vehicle that had been destroyed by a mine, and he returns home only to find an empty home, his children abducted, and he has right now, without this resolution achieving its objective, he will have very little hope that he will ever see or hear from his children again. So as tragic as these cases are, more are developing as we speak. According to this year's statistics provided by the U.S. Embassy in Japan, the number of cases of parental child abduction to Japan has doubled in the past 2 years and has more than quadrupled in the past 4 years. The problem of abduction isn't going away, it's only getting worse. And these children who have been abducted to Japan have not only lost the previous precious connection with their parent, but they've been deprived of their full heritage, their family and culture. American parents are calling on the U.S. government to urgently intervene, quickly find a diplomatic solution. They have no other voice in this convoluted process. That's what we're asking for. These parents are not going to give up. I want to thank Chairman Berman and particularly 2 of his staff, J.J. Ong and Jessica Lee, for their tireless efforts, Mr. Smith and his staff, and my own staff, Tim Aiken, my legislative director, Yasmin Taib, and Shai Tamari. They have worked diligently with these parents. I thank them for their efforts. I particularly thank the parents who have committed themselves, devoted themselves to reuniting with their child, and who